Hi everyone and welcome to our webinar. Today we are going to discuss the topic of managing repetitive projects in Wrike. Our session is going to take about an hour of your time and we will finish with a Q&A session. We would like to start with introducing ourselves. My name is Artem and I'm a customer success manager here at Wrike. With me here is Irina and she is also a customer success manager. The main goal of our role is to help you use Wrike in the most efficient way. So, this is our agenda for today. We will start our conversation with discussing why to use templates and in what scenarios your team could benefit from them. Then we will discuss the two possible approaches to building templates in Wrike. After that, we will go through the traits of a good template and create a template together. In the last section of the webinar, we will discuss different ways of getting started on a repetitive project from a template in Wrike.
Okay, hi everyone, and let us start. The majority of our customers replies positively to the question, does your team conduct any projects on a repetitive basis? Often it is a case when at first glance it seems that every project is unique, but when you dive into details, you notice that different projects have common steps that are conducted regularly. Creating a template containing all these common steps is a great way of speeding up repetitive work. No longer will you need to start every project from scratch. You will already have a skeleton containing all the key elements of the project. Let's discuss other benefits of using templates. Firstly, if every new project is started from scratch manually, it leaves room for human error. Some important steps could be forgotten or scheduled incorrectly. With templates, there is no chance that this could happen because all the important steps are already predetermined. Secondly, modern organizations can be characterized as highly dynamic. People come and go, and it can take quite a lot of time for newcomers to understand everything that needs to be done to get started on a new project. With templates, there is no need to reinvent the wheel. All the necessary information is already properly documented. Finally, the use of templates can guarantee consistency of outputs. When all the tasks that are required to complete the project are known, transparency is achieved, and it becomes super easy to report both on completed work and on work in progress.
Now when we know the benefits of templates, let's discuss how to create them in Wrike. At the moment there are two approaches available, using a templates folder and using blueprints. Both approaches are pretty simple and straightforward, but have their specifics. Let's start with the first one. For it you need to create a folder and call it templates. It's up to you if every team has a separate folder in its dedicated space, or there is a shared folder used by all team members. Then you either create a project template in that folder from scratch or duplicate an existing project into that folder. Once you have done that, change the status of all the tasks that are part of your template into any from the deferred status group to ensure that team members won't be bothered with notifications from the template. And yes, you got that correct. According to this approach, a template is simply a copy of a project that you store in a place that you have selected for that purpose. Whenever you need to get started on a new project, you simply duplicate the project template, set it up, and you are good to go. The second approach involves the use of new functionality called blueprints. In order to use blueprints, you need to activate them first in Wrike Labs, located at wrike.com/labs. I would like to highlight the fact that blueprints are only available for users of business subscriptions and higher. So, what are the benefits of using blueprints compared to the templates folder? Firstly, blueprint section can be considered a sandbox environment. Templates residing there will not trigger any notifications for your team members until a project is actually launched from a blueprint. Secondly, Unlike projects residing in the templates folder, blueprints are not going to be included into reports you build, which makes reporting more comfortable and convenient. If we put aside these two differences, creating a blueprint and launching a project from it is very similar to adding a template to the folder. You either create a new blueprint from scratch or save one of the existing projects as a blueprint and then simply select the option Create from Blueprint whenever you need to get started on a repetitive project.
All right. Now when you know what your options of working with templates in Wrike are, it's time to discuss the traits of a good template. Let's take a look at a template and go through the traits of it. The first trait is that all of the tasks in this template are properly scheduled. As you can see, those tasks have due dates to the right of their names. Don't worry that the dates are currently incorrect. The tasks will be rescheduled accordingly once the project will be launched from a template. When all the tasks are properly scheduled, your team members will find it easy to prioritize their work on a daily basis. Now let us switch to the Gantt chart view. What can we see here? First, it's easy to notice that all the tasks are interconnected with the dependencies, which is the trait number 2. Why are dependencies important? If tasks are not interconnected, then when you try to reschedule one, the due dates of the remaining tasks will not be affected. And obviously, if you shift the first task of the project for 1 week later, you want all the consequent tasks to be rescheduled accordingly. There is another benefit of interconnecting tasks with dependencies. Once the status of the previous task in the dependency chain is marked as completed, the person responsible for the next task gets automatically notified by Wrike that he or she can now start working on it. What else can we see here on the Gantt chart? The majority of the tasks is represented as rectangles, right? But the key steps look like diamonds. That is because these tasks have been converted into milestones. When you're planning future projects that are going to be conducted on a regular basis, you need to make sure that you take into consideration what steps cannot be shifted, even if some other tasks get delayed. Making sure that all these tasks are converted into milestones is the trait number 3. Let's go back to the list view now. We can see that some tasks here are already assigned. Trait number 4 is pre-assigning tasks whenever it's possible. We're stressing out the part whenever it's possible on purpose. Of course, in an ideal world, all the actionable steps that are part of the template should be assigned. But we do understand that it is often the case when it's not clear who exactly would be covering every single part of the project before it gets initiated. So do assign all the tasks you are 100% sure about and leave the remaining ones unassigned if necessary. Trait number 5 is adding all the necessary comments and tips into the descriptions of the tasks or the project itself. As you can see, the description area of this task contains a list of checkboxes covering the things that the person responsible for this task needs to keep in mind when working on it. The more thoroughly you think about these small details on the stage of preparing your template, the more mistakes could be avoided later when the project are going to be initiated from it. Another thing that you need to keep in mind when preparing your template is that different processes in your organization are represented with different custom workflows in Wrike. Make sure that the correct custom workflow that is relevant to the project type that is going to be launched from this template is applied to the template as the default one. If I right-click on this template, we can see that the website workflow is already applied to it. And this is actually the final 6 traits of a good template in Wrike. Just in case that you got lost somewhere on the way, here on the slide you can see all the 6 traits of a good template enumerated.
Alright, now when we know the traits of a good template, it is time to create a couple. As we already mentioned, there are 2 ways of creating a template in Wrike. You can either build a new template from scratch or create it out of an existing project. We're going to quickly show you both approaches and highlight important things that you need to keep in mind in both cases. Well, let's start with creating a template from scratch. We're going to follow all the advice we recommended earlier. Let's say our team is creating new blog posts on a regular basis, and the template would definitely speed up the process of getting started on this type of project. So I start by clicking the plus button next to the blueprints, but if you would have selected the templates folder approach, you would simply create a new project there. So I'm clicking on the plus button and I'm entering the name for this template. New blog post template. I click create, and a project template with this name is instantly added to the blueprint section of my account. So, what do we need to do to publish a blog post? We will obviously need a copy, so it will be our first task. We will also need to proofread the text, prepare a good picture, do some SEO, and then finally we will be ready to publish the post. Okay, we have added all the necessary tasks, and the next step would be scheduling them and interconnecting them with dependencies. The easiest way to add dependencies is to do that on the Gantt chart, but we won't be able to see the tasks there until we actually schedule them. So what we're going to do here is use mass actions to mass schedule all these tasks for today. So I simply choose today from this menu. We will reschedule them later directly on the Gantt chart. Alright, now I'm switching to the Gantt chart, and as you can see, all the tasks are represented with bars. We're going to use several types of dependencies in the project, according to the business process we have in Creative Team. Usually it all starts with copywriter writing the copy of the post. Then the text is being proofread, and at the same time our designer is selecting a picture for the post. We are interconnecting the first task with the second one with a finish to start dependency type. So I connect copy to proofread. I also move it higher than prepare picture. The second and the third tasks are linked with start to start dependency type. So this is exactly what I am establishing here. Now, at the next stage, our SEO specialist is going to do his magic, and finally the post gets published. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to connect the second and the third tasks with SEO tasks with finish to start dependency type, and also the fourth one with the final one, which is of course publishing the blog post. I also convert the last task into a milestone. So I click on the task, then click on this little menu button and choose the option called Convert to Milestone. I do that because we always publish the post in the same day, and it is super important that the due date is not shifted. We would also need to keep in mind how much time each task is going to take. Usually it takes about 2 days to write a copy, 1 day to proofread it, 1 day to find the picture, and 2 days for SEO. As you can see, I'm changing the durations of the tasks directly here on the Gantt chart by simply expanding the bars representing them. Good. All the tasks are scheduled and it is time to assign them. Our template only has few tasks, each of which is covered by a different role. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to assign them one by one. So the first task is going to be completed by Lawrence, the second one by Anne, then Bob is going to proofread the text. I am usually the person who is going to publish the post, and Brian is going to be responsible for SEO. But of course, if the project would be more complex, I would use mass actions to speed up the process of assigning these tasks. Now it is time to add some tips to the description of the tasks wherever it is necessary. For example, our creative team has a yearly subscription purchased at smashingphotos.com, where we get the pictures for the blog post. So we are adding a link to this service to the description of the prepare a picture task. So I will simply type in smashingphotos.com. So the designer will not forget where exactly she will need to get that photo. Finally, we will need to apply a relevant custom workflow to the template. We have a specific blog workflow, so I'm just selecting it here from the list. Now our template is ready and it looks great. All the recommendations that we have discussed earlier are taken into account. Now let's cover the second approach, which is creating a template from an existing project. First, the process is really simple. So I'm going to just choose one of the projects I already have here. Just let me get one of them from the marketing department space. For example, this one, serial banner ad. So I'm going to right click this project, and here from the menu I'm going to choose the option called save as blueprint. If again you are using the templates folder approach, I would simply select the option called duplicate and duplicate this project into some other folder that I have selected to store all my templates. So there are several things that you need to keep in mind when you are creating a template from the existing project. Firstly, analyze your project and think whether it contains any steps that are very specific and are not applicable to all projects of this category. For example, here in the serial banner ad project, we have 9 tasks, and each of them is important for the process of creating a new banner ad. But if, for example, this project would contain some tasks that would be specific only to this particular project, I would definitely get rid of these tasks once I create a template or a blueprint out of this project. Secondly, you will need to check which attributes of the tasks you would like to transfer into your template or blueprint. You can choose to copy descriptions, attachments, assignees, custom fields, and reschedule the whole project. Obviously, if the project that will serve as the skeleton for our blueprint already contains descriptions, attachments, and information in the custom fields that are specific only to this project, make sure that you leave the relevant checkboxes unchecked, like this. And then you just save it.
Okay, so our last topic for today is how to get started on a repetitive project. You have two options here. You can either manually launch a project from a template or a blueprint if you use that, or interconnect your template with a request form so that the project will be launched upon the form submission. The first approach would only require a couple of actions from your side. If you're using a templates folder, select the project and click duplicate. If you're using blueprints, choose the option create from blueprint. Select the location where you want a new project to be placed. And then you can also specify a prefix. If you would be, if it is added to the beginning of each of the tasks names, and it can help you in several ways. First of all, you will be able to easily find all the tasks that have such prefixes using the search bar. And also, if you're not planning to share the whole project with the team, prefixes will make it easy to understand which project any of those tasks having those prefixes relates to. The second approach will require some additional preparation from your side. You will need to set up a request form, populate it with the questions, select a template or blueprint that is going to be created upon the form submission, and the location where the newly created project will fall into. Advanced request forms can initiate projects from different templates depending on the answers that the person submitting the form provides. Okay, so now let's have a look at an example of a simple request form. Just a second. Okay, so here is the simple example of a request form, and it triggers the creation of a project from a template. As you can see, both the template and the location are already specified here. The project would also have a predetermined owner whom we specify right here in this field. Some cases involve more advanced scenarios of initiating projects from templates. Let's say that we have posted an external link to a request form to our website, and the customers are able to fill it out and request projects from our site. Our team does not really take every single project into work, and we can be fully occupied with ongoing projects or just can make a decision not to move forward with a particular request. In this scenario, the process will be divided into two parts. The form, the link to which is on the website, would trigger the creation of a task containing the details of a requested project. Then the team or a specific employee responsible for processing these requests would make a decision whether to move forward with the project or not. If the project was approved, the team member would either duplicate a template manually or make an internal request that will trigger the creation of a project from that template. And if the team chooses not to proceed with a particular project, the status of the initial task triggered by the submission of that form is changed to cancelled or declined. Even though this approach may seem a bit complicated right now, one of the benefits of it would be that all the incoming requests would be stored in a single location. And at the end of the month or quarter or year, you would be able to build a simple task-based report to see which requests you have taken into work and which ones the team decided to decline. Okay, then, so that's pretty much what we wanted to cover for you today. So let us pass to the question and answers part. Let us check whether you have added any questions to the question section of your webinar interface.
All right, guys. So we have a question from Jim. Could you please explain again the I'm sorry, let me just open it. Let me expand the question box. Could you please explain again the difference between templates and blueprints? Yeah, that's a great question, Jim. So again, template is simply a copy of the project in Wrike that you store in the place that is convenient for you and your team members. So basically, you just create a folder in your workspace, and then you just start populating this folder with all the possible templates representing the projects that your team is doing on a regular basis. And blueprints is a specific functionality that can be activated in wrike.com/labs. So you just go here and you find Wrike blueprints for templates and planning. Let me actually paste the link into the chat so you will not need to look for it. All right. So you activate blueprints and then you will just be able to have them all here. All right. So and from the functional perspective, as we already discussed, there are two key differences, two key benefits of the blueprints compared to just a copy of the project that you store in any place, in any location. The first difference is that blueprints are not included in any reports, so they will not clutter your reports with the items that you do not want to see there. And secondly, any item that is residing here in the blueprint section does not trigger any notification. So you can keep assigning the tasks, reassigning the tasks, changing the owner of the whole project, changing the dates, and until you actually right-click your blueprint and choose the option Create from Blueprint, none of your team members will ever be bothered with any Wrike notifications. All right, there is another question that we have, and it is from Stephanie. Can you tag blueprints? That's a great question, Stephanie. So here we have this blueprint called Serial Banner Ad, and if I just click on the plus button, I can, for example, I can just tag it into one of the folders residing in the blueprint section. So basically, here I can, for example, create a folder called Creative and store all my creative blueprints in that folder. So if, for example, this serial banner ad template, which I should actually rename to just banner ad template, is always performed by the creative team, then I will definitely choose the creative folder here in the blueprints. And yes, I am able to categorize my blueprints. But of course, you cannot tag your blueprints into any actual items because, well, blueprints are not projects. All right.
Okay, so we have a question from Julie. Could you say again what is required for my company to have access to blueprints? I think you said it was a specific type of license. Thank you for your question, Julie. And yes, you're absolutely correct. Blueprints are available to all the subscriptions starting from business. And also, it's important to make sure that when you go to Wrike Labs, this feature is enabled by the admin of your account. Otherwise, you won't be able to see this possibility because this is the feature which gets enabled to the whole account. So hopefully I did cover that one.
We have a question from Ale. Since tasks are rescheduled accordingly when a project starts, does this mean that the dates shift automatically based on the start date? That's a great question, and actually let me show it. I think it would be much better if I just give you a demo. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to create a project from a template and place it into the creative folder that is residing under the marketing space. So I'm going to use this new blog post template and I click create from blueprint. So let's say this project is going to be called blog post for Adidas. So I choose the creative folder, marketing, creative, yeah, this one. And as you can see, you have two options here. You can either set first task start date or set last task end date. So basically you have two points that you can use. Either you can specify the beginning of the project and all the consequent tasks are going to be rescheduled accordingly, or you can choose the end of the project and then all the predecessors will be scheduled accordingly. For example, if I choose the last task end date and schedule my project for, let's say, the 16th of August, I click create. And as you can see, if we open our project on the Gantt chart, we can see that all the tasks are successfully transferred into this new project. And the date of the last task is the 16th of August. And all the remaining tasks are scheduled accordingly. So I hope this is clear now. A couple of follow-up questions from Al. What happens if we have asks can be worked on in parallel timeline? Do you recommend using subtasks? Sometimes the projects have many tasks involved for a specific portion of the project. For example, like casting. You need create casting, submit casting, actual casting days, review talent, and approve talent. Well, so the key answer here, that's a great question, Al, and the key answer here is how you would like to report on your work. If you need all these items to be included into that report, then definitely either organize your tasks with just numbers in the beginning of their names, like mini prefixes, or use subtasks, because in that way you will see all those items into your reports and maybe into your dashboards. But if there is like just some small steps that need to be accomplished, like we have been demonstrating when we were talking about that like template, right? Where we have added checkboxes to the what was the name of it? It was the, I think, prepare picture. Yeah, prepare picture task. So you can just add these boxes, but obviously then you will not see that information in any of your dashboards or reports. So basically, yeah, the answer to your question, Ale, is how whether you would need or you would not need to report on these items. And I think we've already covered this question, but still, so Stephanie is specifying, can I tag a folder that is not in blueprints? No, you cannot. So you can only tag that blueprint into one of the folders that resides in the blueprints category.
Okay, we have a question from Chelsea. Can you tag an individual task within a blueprint project without that blueprinted task showing up in the active folder assigned in that tag? Okay, so yeah, when we're talking about the tasks or the work that we keep in blueprint section, as we have previously mentioned, this is an absolutely separate section in Wrike, and this is kind of a sandbox, and this is the initial idea of it. So it means that the work that we keep in those blueprints should not be mixed with the active one in any way. So there is no way that you can tag a task from blueprints to any of the active stages. So the only thing that you can do here is to initiate to launch the new work out of the one that you keep in blueprints. That's the only way for you to work with that.
We have a question from Gary. Is there a shortcut to create projects from a blueprint on a regular basis, like the recurrent tasks feature? Well, quick answer, no. Sadly, there is no such thing at the moment, but this is actually a great idea, and I will make sure that it gets to our product development team. Maybe they will implement it in one of the future releases of Wrike. Another quick question from Derek. Is there a way to sync tasks in Wrike with Outlook Calendar? Not so you cannot sync them directly, but you can create you can activate the integration with Outlook Calendar, so you will have a quick way of creating the tasks from your Outlook. Yeah.
Okay, we have one more question from Chelsea. If a milestone has dependencies, will it automatically be rescheduled as its dependent tasks get moved? The answer is no, because milestone is a type of a task. These are those tasks that specify the important landmarks of your project that you pay special attention to, and usually those landmarks have some specific deadlines that cannot be shifted. This is the idea of converting a task into a milestone in Wrike. So you convert those tasks that should stay in place no matter happens to all the tasks that happen either before or after after these milestone.
We have another question from Stephanie. And guys, thank you so much for being active on the webinar. It's great that you have so many questions. Can I create a dependency so a task is dependent on two tasks that are being worked on at the same time? Yes, you can do that. So this is exactly what we did here. So this task called SEO is dependent on both the task called proofread and on the task called prepare a picture. But you can always delete any dependencies that you don't need. So I click on this dependency connecting the first task to the fourth one, and I delete this dependency. So now it's the SEO task is dependent only on prepare a picture, and I can of course establish this dependency back. All right. So while you're preparing some additional questions, we would like to share some resources that are available to you. And the first resource is our webinar page at wrike.com/webinar. You are obviously familiar with this page because you have registered for this session. But anyway, we have a lot of different cool stuff here, including recorded versions of the webinars that we have already delivered, live versions that we're going to deliver in future, and also some great portion of detailed how-to step-by-step guides that you can use, for example, to get familiar with a certain functionalities like blueprints. By the way, there was a question today about integration between Wrike and Outlook. You can also watch this video. It's a very short one, so it will not take a lot of your time. Another resource that we will definitely recommend is our help center located at help.wrike.com. And by the way, I'm pasting the link into the chat. So our help center is the place where you can find articles on all kinds of different topics, for example, blueprints. A lot of our articles have videos embedded into them, so you can just go through the article and quickly become an expert in any given topic. And also accessible through our help center is another very important resource called Wrike Community. Our community is the place where customers share best practices and where you can get answers to complicated questions from the Wrike gurus. And by the way, even though I promised to deliver the great idea that was suggested by Chelsea to our R&D team, I also would like to encourage you all to post your ideas here. So we have this product feedback thread here where you can add your suggestions, and I can tell that our development team visits our community at least once per week, and they gather ideas and inspiration from here. So make sure that you post something interesting here. And another question that we have is from Ale again. So can you export calendars from Wrike to Google Calendar? Well, quick answer, no, that is not possible at the moment. Next question that we have is from Laura. What solution would you recommend for a project of annual reminders? I don't actually want people to work in the project, but I want them to get reminders. Well, then I would definitely recommend using recurrent tasks. So you can just create a folder called, I don't know, reminders, or create a folder that your team feels comfortable just having as the place for notifications. Let me actually do that here. So I add a folder and I call it reminders. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a task, and it's going to be a recurrent task. And I'm going to call it just project reminder, project A reminder. All right, so now I just open this task and I make it recurrent. And I set the recurrency to the state that I need to have. For example, if the project is conducted on a yearly basis, I would choose yearly option. If the project needs to be conducted on a monthly basis, I would choose the monthly options. And I can add any necessary information into the description, like don't forget X. Also, don't forget Y. And I click save. So then if I add assignees to this task, not in the one that is created, but in the recurrency settings, and I add all the people who will need to work on this project that, as you said, Laura, is conducted on an annual basis, right? Then all these people will receive notifications every time a new task in the recurrency chain is going to be created. So that's how it can be done. And if you have already created that task, you just go into that task, click edit recurrency, and then start adding all these people. So if, for example, myself and let's say Bob are going to be involved in that annual project, so I've just assigned these recurrent tasks to us three, to the three of us, and now each of us will receive a notification containing the link to this task into our inboxes on an annual basis. So yeah, that's how it can be done. This is how we can recommend to do that. All right, so we still have some time for your questions. And another one is from Stephanie. Can you make an entire task subtask list recurrent? Again, quick answer, no. Sadly, that is not possible at the moment. So for you can only make a task recurrent, you cannot make a subtask recurrent, and you cannot make a project recurrent. Yeah. Thanks for the advice. I will also forward this to the R&D team. Thank you, Stephanie. All right. So we see that there are no more questions. We hope that's because you understood everything we were talking about. Oh no, there is one more from Laura. Does the task that has subtasks hold onto subtasks when you make task recurrent? No. As I said, subtasks cannot be included into recurrency chain. So if you make a task recurrent, then the recurrency chain will only recreate the parent task. It will not duplicate all these subtasks that are part of that task. And another question is from Chelsea. So we have several heroes today who are asking so many questions. Thank you so much, guys. So you might have mentioned this, but can I watch this webinar on demand? I missed the first few minutes. Yes, you will be able to watch it. We will paste the recording of the webinar on the webinar page by the end of tomorrow. And also, every person who had registered for the session will receive a link to the recording. Yeah.
Okay, so we have one more question from Laura. Different topic, but it came up. I actually don't know what a workflow is. So in the context of Wrike, workflow is the tool that helps you to specify the stage that the work goes through. So when the Wrike account is new, there is only one workflow that is available. It is called default workflow, and it has just 4 basic statuses just to represent the stages of work. But starting from a business subscription, it is possible to add custom workflows to represent the stages that work goes through in your specific business. So as you can see on the example right now, here is the custom workflow for marketers, right, for the marketing team, and we have added a list of the specific stages that are relevant to this team. So hopefully this covers your question.
Another question that we have is from Julie. What happens if you assign the task to someone outside of the recurrence? Meaning, on the page you are showing now, if you click plus to add someone, what happens with that person's reminder? That's a great question. So, are you asking about the task that has already been created in the recurrency chain, or if we are editing the recurrency itself? Because there are going to be different answers for these two cases. If you are adding the whole recurrency chain, so you just go to the task and you click edit recurrence. So in this menu, if you add another person, that person will be included in the list of people who will always receive notifications regarding the fact that a new task in this chain has been created. I'm sorry, but if you edit the assignee section of the task that has already been created, then this person will only be added to that particular task. So I hope this answers your question. Yeah. Another question that we have is from Stephanie. So my suggestion to your development team is to have the ability to tag blueprints into project folders, so when the blueprints become a project, you don't need to tag it every time. Actually, this is partially possible if you use one of the approaches that we have discussed today called request forms. So if you set up the request form and interconnect it with the blueprint, you can then specify a particular location where all the projects created from that blueprint are going to fall into. So the difference will be just that in the first case you will manually duplicate that blueprint, duplicate that template, and in the second case the new project would be initiated by the request form. But yes, if you use request form, you can specify the location and all new projects will fall into that folder. So you will not need to spend time specifying that folder.
And one more question from Stephanie. You're going to be the winner of the questions today. Another question in a workflow, is there a way for the owner to not receive notifications all the way through the process? So that depends on the notification we're talking about here. Because in Wrike, we have the inbox, which collects notifications about absolutely everything that is happening to the work you're assigned to or following. And also that's possible to receive email notifications about pretty much the same events. So it is possible to edit those email notifications in the profile, right, in the email preferences. So this is the place to go, right? You can uncheck those the boxes against those notifications that you do not want to receive. But the notifications that come into the inbox of Wrike, yeah, within your workspace, it is not possible to edit them in any way. They will come to this place.
All right, the last question is going to be from Chelsea. If time allows, what's the difference between a space and a blueprint? Space is a central hub for the team's work. So basically, it is always a top-level item in your hierarchy of items on the left-hand side navigation panel. So when you start building your structure, you start with adding a space for your team or department, and then you start populating that space with folders and projects. So space is central hub, and it is the top-level item. Blueprint is the functionality that allows you to work with templates. So you save certain repetitive projects as blueprints or create a blueprint from scratch, and then you start launching new projects from a blueprint. So on the high level, this is the difference between templates and blueprints and spaces. All right, so we are going to be wrapping up. I would like to thank you so much for being active on this webinar. Thank you so much for your questions. We had a lot of them. We hope that we have provided good answers to your questions. Again, you will be able to rewatch this webinar starting tomorrow by going to wrike.com/webinar, and you will also be able to download the handout to today's webinar. I would like to thank you again and wish you the most productive rest of your week.
Yeah, true. Thank you so much for your participation and for being that active. That was a pleasure to cover your questions and to having you all today on this session. So thank you so much and hope to see you on our future sessions. Goodbye.